December in the year 2023. And God, I don't know how many shows we've been doing now. I think we've done a few years now. We've been doing this. And God got us willing. We're going to keep doing it. So let me just give you some heads up about today's show. Deborah will be on toward the end of the show, as usual, doing her thing, her healing spiritual gifts. And today, after I do my usual forecasting at the beginning of the show, we're going to have a special guest on today, Dennis Harness, who's a Vedic astrologer and a noted Vedic astrologer. He and I first crossed paths back in the Bay Area in the late 80s, early 90s. We both were speaking at some different conferences, and we both lived in the Bay Area at the time. I didn't really know him then, but since I moved to Sedona, he's been in Sedona for 20 plus years, and we've been really good friends since I've gotten here. So he'll be on today. He'll be on today discussing Vedic astrology and a little bit about how his personal evolution and growth have been. And like I said, then we'll have Deborah on at about 22 or quarter to, something like that. So let me give you the big picture first, and then we'll get down into this coming week and what's coming up in the next couple of weeks, and also what's happening 2024 a little bit. But most of the talk about 2024 I'm going to do on a special show on the 20th of January next year. And on that one, I'm going to be prepared with a lot of potential predictions. Like I'm going to go over a lot of the Republican primary contestants, go over the Democratic possibilities, some other possibilities. There's like 4 independent party people that are joining in this year. So I'm going to do my best to find their birth information and do some predicting as to who our next president might be, and also who our next primary winners in the Republican Party, Democratic Party. Joe Biden, is he going to be good when we have the election next year? So I'm going to predict a lot of things in the different countries and what's going to be going on in the year, in the 2024. So please tune in on the 20th of January. And I'm not sure exactly what format I'm going to use, whether it's just going to be the show, or whether I'm going to set up like a webinar, seminar kind of a thing. But keep in touch with me, and you'll be able to find out exactly what the format will be. But definitely January 20th, 2024, not to be missed. More big picture. So, I talk about it a lot. We've entered the age of Aquarius, entered on the 21st of December, 2020 on the winter solstice. And what happened that year at the winter solstice is Jupiter was conjunct Saturn in Aquarius at 0+, like between 0 and 1 degree. To me, I was getting a message from the universe that this was the beginning of the age of Aquarius, especially so since we had a big election just the month before when Donald Trump was beaten by Joe Biden. And just other things that were happening. And then the attack on the Capitol happened in January 2021. And I just had a strong sense that that's the beginning of the age of Aquarius, was winter solstice. So what's happened since is important on this bigger picture. Age of Aquarius, as Pluto has moved into Aquarius, moved in early last year, 2023. And even though it went back into Capricorn, in fact, is right now back in Capricorn for a little bit while longer, another month or so. And then at the end of 2024, it'll go back into Capricorn for a little while. But overall, it's moving into Aquarius. It was in Aquarius this year a little bit, moved back out. Next year in Aquarius a lot of the year, moved back out very end of the year. And then when it goes back into Aquarius after that, it is going to be in for 20 years. So till 2024. That's a long time even for Pluto, which moves very slowly. Usually for Pluto, it'll stay in the sign about 13, 14 years. So this time, 20 years. Let's go back to 1777. What was going on in 1777? American Revolution, you all know, started in 1776. So Pluto in Aquarius, 1777 to 1797. That took in the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and it also took in the discovery of Uranus during that time in 1781. And that was important because Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. So how synchronized are the heavens sometimes? Revolution starts, two revolutions that are big, and at the same time, Uranus gets discovered, Pluto goes into Aquarius. So with Pluto in Aquarius again, okay, so back then I like to think of that as the cusp of the new age, like you're just right in between old age and new age. And since there was the revolutions at that time, it kind of makes sense because that's a lot of what Aquarius has to do with. And so Pluto went into Aquarius for 20 years, kind of brought more fully in these energies of the revolution. And now, with the age actually being in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius is going to, this time, we're not on the cusp, we're in it. And so these next 20 years are going to be really intensely transformational, meaning more and more letting go of the old chapter, the old age, and letting in and embracing the new chapter, the new consciousness, the new paradigm, the new age. This age of Pisces that came right before this age of Aquarius, it goes backwards on ages. Pisces and Aquarius, the next one will be Capricorn. But that one won't happen for like about 2,100 more years. Because that's how long an age lasts, over 2,100 years. The last age began 2,100 years ago, so around the time of the birth of Christ, maybe a little bit before the birth of Christ, is when the last age began. And a lot of prophets were born either 100 years, 200 years before Christ was born, or we go to Muhammad was born about 600 years after Christ was born. But you had all these prophets all born around the same time. Lao Tzu, Confucius. There's a couple I'm not thinking of, but there's more. All born within like 600 or 700 years of each other. And that had a lot to do with what the age of Aquarius has been. It's been major religion having much control over the world, especially Christianity and Muslim. Judaism was kind of a holdover. Began during the age of Aries. Number goes backwards. So Aries, Pisces, Aquarius. So Pluto in Aquarius is a time of cleaning out the old and bringing in the new. So like I was saying, prophets were born during that time. So brought in all these religions, which is a big part of what that age has been. We also know another part of the old age has been, because it goes beyond just this last age, the patriarchal running of our world. That's been going on for quite a while. That goes back into other ages. Patriarchal God was invented back in Judaism. Muslims picked up that God also. Supposedly, when Christ was born and Christianity was born, it was kind of supposed to be moving beyond the patriarchal God into moving to our hearts, Christ consciousness, our hearts. But you and I both know that there's still a whole lot of power with that old patriarchal paradigm. And so a lot of what we're going to be doing over these next 20 years is letting go of that patriarchal paradigm like we never have before. And we'll be letting go of the controls that come not only from governments, but religions have had a lot of control over our lives too. Rules, regulations, commandments, guilt. Age of Aquarius is more of a direct connection between individuals and spirit, between individuals and soul. Not so much of a need for the middleman, middle woman anymore, because it'll be direct. Doesn't mean you won't have guides, and mentors and people to teach you things. But you won't be putting them up on pedestals, because that's a lot of what this Age of Aquarius will be about. Remember, go back to 1776. It was a breaking away from, I should say, kings and queens, which is the way England was running their country. The United States was a part of, people from the United States were a part of that country. So we're moving beyond that. France, they were too, overthrowing their king at that time. But it was deeper than just the moment of what was needed. It was a statement. You can see it in the Constitution. All people are created equal. And a whole big paradigm of the people, by the people, for the people was instituted. We know we've come a long way from there. Also, diversity within unity. Like everybody's different, everybody's equal, equality. But from that place, we build community. That was an idea back then. That is what Aquarius is about. And that's what we're moving into now in the age of Aquarius. Now, I know you look out into the world and you go, oh, Leo, are you kidding me? Look at it out there. Equals, diversity within unity. People are killing one another for land. Russia, Ukraine, they're killing each other for land. Israel, Hamas, they're killing each other for land in large degree. We need to move beyond all that. We're moving into new consciousness. It's not just an astrological thing. It's like we are moving into it as a human family. In fact, we are evolving into something more than what it is to be human. I believe we are kind of a transitionary energy to a new way of being as human that will take us to a new species in time. And a lot of people are kind of the leaders in that. So let's just talk in general about that new consciousness. I don't want to get into this week in the next couple of weeks. And then we got Dennis coming on about 20 after, 25 after, and then Deborah will be on about 22, quarter to. Okay, so some of the consciousness that's changing now. A lot's got to do with this up here. Yeah, there's opposites. There'll always be opposites. Dark and light, male and female, always going to be opposites. But what's important is that the opposites, like the yin-yang symbol, they come together. They fight, they're different. They speak strongly about what they believe in that's different than the other, but ultimately they come together. Light and dark. Look at the real experience here on Earth. There's night, there's day, there's sun, there's moon. There's dark, there's light. Are they at war with each other? Is one of them evil? No. Because there's no real evil in that. It's got to do with opposites. Remember, diversity with unity is kind of a part of what I'm talking about, because each entity is strongly individualistically what it is, but at the same time learns to make community with all other in equality. And even with just two in a relationship, it's the same thing. Each one goes, I am this, and I'm going to stay this. You can't make me different than what I am. But from that place of you being true to who you are and me being true to who I am, we can find middle ground and stay together. So when you look out in the world, there's still a lot of demonizing that's going on. Whoever you're fighting against to get their land or whatever you're trying to get from them, they're made into the devil. They're made into the bad one. So we're kind of losing the old way of looking at dark and light, male and female, all opposites. We're more and more looking at them as compatible, more than compatible. They fit together, whether they're arguing, disagreeing or not. But they're not killing each other. They don't have to go to war. War is the ultimate separation. War is the ultimate hell. Hell on earth. Isn't it? And by the way, needs to be looked at the whole idea of evil and good. Remember, as the opposites are coming together, we start looking at these things differently. Work with it inside yourself to see what you come up with. But remember, no demonizing of other people, other institutions, other religions, other countries, other cultures. Different, may not like what they believe in, may not like what they stand for, but I can respect it and I can get along with it. So, world of equals in community. Pluto in Aquarius. So what's also happened before Pluto went into Aquarius is a Pluto return, meaning Pluto has come back to the same place it was when the United States was born in 1776, which is between 27 and 28 degrees of Capricorn. That's what Pluto has come back to. So it's a Pluto return. What does Pluto represent in the United States chart? Sitting in its second house, it pretty much represents the military-industrial complex that's been developed. Pluto in the second house. President Eisenhower warned everybody as he was leaving office. He said, it's not exact words, but pretty much what he said. The military-industrial complex has the potential of taking away our freedoms and our democracy. So take a look at what the military-industrial complex is doing to our world. It's like a domination of the world. It's like the whole world has been dominated in very large degree by this Pluto, Pluto in the second house, by this military-industrial complex. It's busting up, and it's going to really bust up in 2024. You can look out there and you see this war going on in Ukraine. You can see this war going on with Israel in Gaza, with Hamas. And these are just the beginning. You see, these aren't ending quickly. It's because they represent something much deeper than the usual kind of skirmishes. They represent a fundamental, deep, at the core, transformation. Israel has spoken. They want to wipe Hamas out. Hamas and others from those communities have talked about wiping out Israel. So that's kind of a really intense war, don't you think? How can you find peace from that place if that's what each side wants to do? So that thing's going to last for a while. Both of them, especially Israel and Palestinians, where it's so simple to just say, two states and live together. But because different sides want to wipe each other out, it's very hard to do that. But yet that's possible still. It'll need to be more than possible next year. I think a lot of you have been listening to my broadcast or reading my blog, and you know that I've been saying that next year is really dangerous for World War III. Back in 1941, before the United States got in the war, there was a Jupiter conjunct Uranus aspect in Taurus. The next time that happened, that was 1941. The next time that happens will be next year in April. Jupiter in 1941 went retrograde in October at 21 degrees of Gemini, just 2 months before the United States got pulled into the war. This year in 2024, Jupiter will go retrograde at 21:20 of Gemini. Exactly where the United States Mars in Gemini sits. So both times, back then in 1941 and now in 2024, Jupiter will be changing directions right on the United States Mars in Gemini. Mars, of course, is the planet of war, but exactly at the right degree too, where the United States Mars sits. Also, in 1941, there was an Aries solar eclipse, new moon, And now there's an Aries solar eclipse, new moon in 2024, the same month as a Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So it's going to be a dangerous year next year. But remember, it's about transformation and the military-industrial complex, which means what? The economy, military. And those two things, the wars are showing us how that shift is going to happen. The economy, where the wealthy, all the billionaires, and then you got poor people on the streets. More and more in the United States, homeless, by the way. Oh yeah, the economy's great. More and more people are homeless. So that's too much disparity in an economy. That's going to change. And next year is going to be a big turning point as we go through this 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. So is it possible that all these different synchronicities I see with 1941 will not take us to a world war? To me, what they're telling me, those aspects, is that it's very high probability that that's going to happen. But remember, what's going on is a changing of ages and a changing of consciousness. So if we as a collective can get to a place of a change of consciousness, enough so, where the wars can be held off, eliminated, I should say, that is a possibility. Again, it's not likely when you look at what's going on and where collective consciousness appears to be. But at the same time, I know more and more people, are listening to what I'm doing and Deborah's doing on these shows, what other people are doing for this new consciousness, this new way of being. More and more people all the time. So people are waking up. And yeah, there's a possibility it won't happen, but don't count on it. It's still likely that it's going to happen. But again, concentrate on the changing of consciousness and the movement into a new age, a new paradigm, more important than anything else. Be bringing on Dennis in just a couple of minutes. Let me just talk a little bit about what's coming up ahead right away, not next year. So this week we begin the fourth quarter phase of the moon this Tuesday, and Neptune on Wednesday will be going direct. Whenever a planet's going from retrograde to direct, or direct to retrograde, it's energy. It's what it means, what it stands for. It's much more powerfully in our consciousness, in our lives. And so with Neptune changing directions on Wednesday, you're going to feel the Neptunian kind of energy. What's Neptune like? Well, it's kind of like a dream world or other dimensions, world of music, but the world behind the world of soul. It's the Pisces planet. It's the inner world. And a lot of people have a hard time with the inner world. They're still pushing for their agendas. If you're pushing for your agenda when Neptune's strong, you're going to be thrown off kilter because Neptune really doesn't take in straightforward, direct activity for gain or winning. It's more about helping us to get into these other dimensions, and even more so, helping us to trust those other dimensions, to trust the universe, to trust our deeper soul. So with Neptune being strong this coming week, middle of the week, and remember that you should feel it for a couple days before and a couple days after too. It's time to not try so hard, relax, let go, trust. Get inside your inner world, spend more time meditating, get involved in spiritual practices. I know you got a practical life you got to take care of too, but you can still stay in a space that's inner directed, even while you're out pushing in an outer directed way. And that's the meaning and the hope of Neptune. Now keep in mind what's also going on is the fourth quarter moon means, the moon is at its half moon and it's getting darker every day until the new moon. And then new moon is on the 12th and Tuesday the 12th at 3:32 p.m. Pacific. And so from now till then, the moon's getting darker every day. Neptune's getting stronger. Something else is getting darker every day. Since we're getting closer and closer to the winter solstice on the 21st of December, that means that the solar side of life is getting darker every day also. So we're getting lunar and solar darkening every day. With the moon, it's going to be until the 12th, and then some light's going to come out, feel more light at that new moon. But by the same token, until the 21st of December, overall, every day is darker and darker. Of course, then on the 21st, the beginning of more light every day begins. So just be careful not to let yourself get too down or too depressed starting this week with the fourth quarter moon and Neptune being there, and of course getting closer and closer to the 21st and the winter solstice. Just catch yourself so you don't get too deep. It's okay. It's good to go inside. It's good to go down a little bit, but not to let yourself get sucked into a rabbit hole of depression. And you've got control over that, having the knowledge of it. So what else is coming up? At the same time that the new moon is happening in Sagittarius, oh, what's retrograde again? Oh, happy days. Mercury goes retrograde on the 12th. In fact, it goes retrograde at, 11:09 Pacific that night. 12:09 here in Arizona, and 2:09 on the East Coast. And it'll stay retrograde until January 1st, 24. So don't make any major decisions. Don't start any major projects. But you don't have to get depressed about that either. It has a purpose too. Mercury's changing directions. Our thoughts, our ways of looking at things, our ways of communicating are all shifting. To a certain extent, there's a feeling of going in reverse with our minds. Also, what does that mean? It means oftentimes people from the past come back into our lives. People come back through either dreams or memories or in actuality in the flesh. Again, not a good time to make decisions, but a good time to reflect, go inward, which a lot is being moved in that direction anyway, with the darkening of the sun and the darkening of the moon. Then don't worry, I'm bringing Dennis on in a little while, everybody. Hold tight. On the 27th of January, Uranus will be going direct after Mercury's direct on the 2nd of January. And then, hallelujah, all the planets will be direct for a while. They'll be direct for a few months. They'll be direct until 1st of April of 24, when Mercury goes back retrograde again. So there you go. Everything will be direct, and then all systems will be go forward. Now, systems are not forward. Systems are slow down, go inward. Don't push the envelope. Don't do anything too aggressive or forceful. But then after that 27th of January, everything will be direct. Speaking of direct, Jupiter will be going direct on the 30th of December also. And then, of course, next year we have the eclipses. Yay for the eclipses. One on March 25th, a lunar eclipse, and then the power one, total solar eclipse on the 8th of April. And that same month, Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus. The last time it was there, remember we talked about that in 1941. So that April is going to be an immensely powerful time period in personal lives and in the world. You got plenty of time to get ready for that, don't we? But when I say powerful and I say, oh my God, it's intense, this does not mean bad, everybody. This means we're all getting pushed to go forward, to grow, to transform what we want to do. We're going to be able to do. What these eclipses do is, if you're stuck somewhere in your mind, in your heart, in your way of being, in your habits, the eclipses help you to break away from the stuckness and move deeper in your heart and soul and move more toward the new paradigm for the new age. Okay, I think I've been blabbing for an awful long time here. So without further ado, let's bring on my friend and fellow astrologer, Dennis Harness. I see you.
Hey, Leo. Nice to connect.
Connect with you. Let's make sure we get
All right. Two soul brothers together.
Two soul brothers on either side of the yin yang. There we are.
Good to see you, buddy. Nice to be able to do this finally. We did it.
I know. We've had technical glitches and personal glitches. But yeah, we made it. Yeah. Would you tell everybody a little bit about what you do, and then I want to hear about like how you all got started. Let's start there.
Sure, Leo. Yeah. my specialty, and I actually started out with Western astrology back in the 70s. My specialty is the astrology of India, and I was introduced to it back in 1980. I consider myself a neo-Vedic astrologer because I'm not a traditional Vedic astrologer in terms of this astrology from India. I use the outer planets. I even like Chiron. One of my good friends, Dimitri George, who I used to do tours, to Greece and India and Egypt with, is the asteroid goddess. So I had a lot of influence over all these years from tropical astrology. You may or may not know, but Vedic astrology is based on the sidereal zodiac. So it's more of an astronomer's point of view. It's sometimes called constellational astrology. For example, Jupiter is in Taurus in tropical astrology, and in Vedic, because there's about a 24-degree difference, it would be back in Aries. Now, my belief system is both systems work totally. For me, kind of Vedic astrology is kind of sometimes the undercurrents, the riptides, the tsunamis in life. So I think in a way, tropical astrology, of course, it keeps us in touch with the seasons and the solstice and equinox points, which Vedic astrology doesn't, although we would acknowledge them for sure that they're power points. So anyway, like I said, I was introduced to it back in 1980 by a man named Chakrapani Ulal from Kerala, India.
How'd that happen? How'd you meet and all that?
It was interesting. I was doing this yoga teacher's training course up at Ananda, Nevada City, California, Yogananda's kind of retreat center. It's a 3-month course. And at the end of the course, the head of this organization there, Swami Kriyananda, told me, he said, maybe you should get your Vedic chart done. At that time, it was called Hindu astrology. And I didn't even realize there was a difference between the two systems, because I was all into tropical astrology at that point.
You weren't an astrologer yet, were you? As a tropical
No,
astrologer?
I didn't start practice of astrology professionally until 88. But I was introduced to it at Vedic astrology. But at that time, there were only a few books written on it. Actually, one of them was actually called Constellational Astrology by Robert Deleuze, who was a sidereal astrologer. But anyway, he told me about this man, Chakrapani, who was Muktananda, Swami Muktananda's astrologer.
Oh.
And he had come to the United States actually in 77. So he had only been here a few years. And it was just a powerful experience. He actually said, early on in the session, he said, "You will be married twice." And I hadn't even been engaged once. I was like 24 at the time. And then he said, about halfway through the session, he goes, "I know your mind very well, perhaps better than you."
Wow.
But he was just a great guy. He had a showmanship kind of spirit to him too. But anyway, I felt like he was reading me like a map. So I knew I wanted to study it, but it wasn't until about 86, there was a book that came out called Ancient Hindu Astrology for the Modern Western Astrologer by James Braha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great book because it kind of ties in the two systems. And he actually wrote another one called, I think, Transits in the West and Dashas in the East. Because
By the way, tell everybody how many times you've been married.
Twice.
Okay.
It did come to pass.
Sorry,
it did come to pass. First marriage went up in smoke. Well, in Western as well as Vedic, I have the Venus combusts the sun. And I find sometimes in a man's chart that if he's heterosexual man, it literally goes up in smoke quite often. So I could see where from, after I'd studied Vedic astrology, where he was drawing that from. But sure enough, I got married again, and we've been together 35 years. We fight like cats and dogs. No, I'm just teasing. We get along great. So anyway,
but you stay together.
So there's no late. It's never too late for redemption. So anyway, but I got into James's teachings and all that, and studied with him about 87, I think it was, and then what was it? Yeah, October of 88. It was actually a couple of weeks after my solar return, right on my birthday, solar eclipse, right on my birthday.
88?
In 88, September 13th. And a few weeks later was when I actually started teaching professionally. So I feel like that solar eclipse, even though we sometimes look at them like, whoa, they're really intense, which they are, they can also be conduit points of initiation into a whole new phase of your life.
That's right.
So
absolutely. Nothing to be afraid of. Nothing with astrology is to be afraid of.
That's true.
If you want to grow and you want to transform, you love it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, what point of view do you want to look at the game from?
Yeah.
Because to me, astrology is like astral chess. It's on all these different levels, and depending on your point of view and where you want to put your energy, that's where it's working.
I'm glad you mentioned about how you incorporate the outer planets, because that's the only real difficulty I've had with sidereal astrology, with Vedic astrology, is I base most of my work on the outer planets. So it's really good to know that you incorporate that in there too, that Saturn's not the end all
right
in the universe.
Yeah, I got a bunch of flack early on. I started doing conferences, putting them on back in 1992 in San Francisco area. And I know you lived back there for a number of years as well. And I got a bunch of flack from my traditional Vedic astrologers about using the outer planets, but I just still carried on. I was born with Pluto on my ascendant tropic and natally, and as in tropical, of course, as well as Vedic, because one of the things that ties the two systems in together is the aspects between the planets.
Explain that to everybody.
Well, they're still happening. I mean, if you have Pluto on the ascendant in your tropical chart, you're going to have Pluto rising in your Vedic chart as well. Or if you have Jupiter trine the sun, it's still happening in both systems. So that's where the two systems really connect. And then the other place is the transits. If you've got Jupiter transiting over your ascendant or your moon, it's happening in both systems. That's why back in, I think it was 77, Robert Hand's book called Planets in Transit, is so powerful, because it doesn't matter whether you're using tropical or sidereal astrology. And he doesn't even mention much about the zodiacs in that book, if you really read it.
I did read that,
yeah. So that was one of my initiations, along with Cohen and Akers' book, The Astrologer's Handbook, were two of the books early on back in the late 70s that kind of introduced me to Western astrology. So again, I'm a Neo-Vedic astrologer. So when I look at a chart, I'm thinking tropical as well as sidereal in my work. So.
And you're looking at the transits,
correct,
of all the planets.
Yeah. And being born with Pluto on the ascendant, I know it works. I mean, I'm like a cat with 9 lives, and I've used up about 7 of them,
Yeah, explain to people about the Pluto on your ascendant, what that's been like.
Well, actually, it's interesting, because it's the midpoint between Mars and Pluto is my ascendant exact. Like Mars is 6 degrees on one side, or 7, and then Pluto's 6 or 7 on the other side. So boom. So according to Ebertin in his book, he talked about these midpoints. And if you have Pluto as the midpoint between those two, it usually indicates, a death in the life, an early death. And I almost did die when I was in the womb, as well as when I was about 13 months old.
Tell everybody about those two circumstances.
Well, the in the womb thing, it's a little heavy, a little personal, but my biological father, who I never met, my legal father, basically, he tried to kill me in the womb, tried to step on my mother's stomach. So it was very Pluto experience in the 12th house. Because I always think the 12th house is the womb, and then it's also the tomb, so it's both. And then when I was about 13 months old, I went through a windshield in a car and kind of crushed my whole head. And again, the first house is the head. And I have Mars close to the ascendant with Pluto. So those were 2 near-death experiences. And even when I was born, there was some problem with the cord wrapped around my neck. So there was these 3 different experiences by the age of 13 months of, really death, rebirth kind of things.
He has explained Pluto very well, by the way, everybody, with the little Mars thrown in.
Yeah, really.
But Pluto's transformational, but it's like the death, the ashes after that, and then the phoenix rising. You explain that pretty well, how you have the death and then the phoenix rising. That's where do we live, New Phoenix?
So I should say to you, Leo, you don't want to get too close to me, because I can combust in any minute. And I even had a near-death experience when I was like 52, where I left my body for a while and went to the other side, and it was powerful. So, it was a very personal thing. Actually, in my marriage, we were having some struggles at that point in time, and I was doing way too much, like spinning 20 plates simultaneously, kind of like Chinese acrobats, And what happened was Saturn was transiting over my ascendant to the exact degree and exact minute. And it was like this powerful experience where I thought I was having a heart attack. I had this anvil on my chest. I couldn't hardly breathe. My whole body went numb. And then I just went out to the other side.
Wow. And let me tell everybody, don't forget, he's been talking about his ascendant in Mars and Pluto right there. Mm-hmm. And that Saturn was right at that spot when this happened, bringing out all the things that he's talking about. which brings on that death and rebirth again.
Yeah.
So how did you come back from that one? What happened?
Well, well, and actually, again, Saturn was right on that midpoint too, between Pluto and Mars. So it was just like, and you all probably know, but Saturn it's 29-year cycle, so it doesn't happen every day.
That's right.
To have Saturn transiting over your ascendant. But what happened was I went to the other side, and it was really peaceful there. I mean, the main thing I got from it more than anything was the stillness, the quiet. It's like the mind just totally stopped. It was a beautiful experience because my mind never stops, So
was there anything in you that let's keep going in this direction and not go back?
Yeah, I was taken into this room, and it was like a life review where I was kind of shown my life, and at the time I was 52 years old, and maybe in clock time it was like a half hour, but it was like a life review, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, mostly the bad and the ugly, because it's kind of like maybe I didn't get the lesson, didn't learn the lesson. So then it wasn't said so much in words, but it was this feeling like, you can stay here or go back kind of thing. And then the message I got, whether it was from my higher self or these souls that were helping me with this life review, was go back and clean up your mess. So I had to come back, and I was running a huge organization at the time with 500 members, and I was doing conferences, and a husband, father of my kids. And so I didn't have a time to go to a shaman's hut for 3 months and hang out. I was just thrown right back into the world.
And I could see the part of you that would have wanted to move on. Yeah. So much stress in your life all the time.
Yeah. So again, and so I had to come back and work with that. And that was back in 2007. So it's been 16 years. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your life like now, number one? And then tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and what you can do for them if they do get a hold of you.
Sure. I just retired from putting on conferences. I used to put on the International Symposium of Vedic Astrology. Started that back in 92. And my last one was 2021. So I had a Saturn return to when I first did the conferences. And so it felt complete. So I've been working on some writing on a memoir called The Karmic Code, The Planetary Cycles of the Soul. And again, I'm a husband. I got my kids. I've got three children and a granddaughter as well. And so that's a big focus for me, is to reconnect with the father energy, because sometimes I call fathers distance learning dads, because they're not there as much.
You had a pretty tough natural father too. You just told us.
Yeah. So that, or the legal father. Yeah. And he was a great guy, actually, but we won't go into that story.
The one that stepped on your mom.
He was really a great person. He just he was having a tough day.
You're pretty good at forgiving.
Yeah.
Forgiving, aren't you?
Yeah. So he was a cool guy, actually. But anyway, that now I'm working on the writing. I still see a lot of clients, not that many, maybe 10 clients a week. And people can get a hold of me through my website. It's just DennisHarness.com, just like a horse harness, and DENNIS with 2 N's. And under there's you can contact me and send me your birth information, and we'll set up a time for a session. Usually the sessions are about an hour and 15 minutes. And unless you're in Sedona, where I can do it in person, probably 80% of my sessions are through Zoom or phone.
As are mine. Yes,
yeah,
that's right. Nowadays, that's how it goes.
And then I record them and send you the recording as well as the charts. And, but again, I just call it getting an astrological makeover. It's just like a new wardrobe to take on as well.
And tell people again how to get a hold of you.
So again, probably the best way is just, my email is just Dennis@DennisHarness.com, or you can go on my website, DennisHarness.com. Those are probably the best ways to reach me.
You come back again?
Oh yeah, great. All right, that was great.
Pleasure.
Nice to connect, as always. We're becoming best buddies.
We are, everybody.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about Deborah Knighton Tallarico. She's got about 8 other names. Lelia, and we just use Deborah Knighton Tallarico. That'll be enough for today. No, she's ready to come on, and I'm going to bring her on right now. And trying to bring you on, Deb. Here you go. There you go.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you very well, honey.
Something was reverberating. It was so great to see you and Dennis talking with each other there. I love that.
That was very enjoyable for me.
Very awesome. Yeah. Awesome to hear you both so much. And
Tell
you were
everybody, go on, huh? I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say you were bringing me on right at 1:44 p.m. I was looking at the clock and I was like, oh, this magical number. I'm coming on. Coming on.
144,000. Tell everybody about the 144.
Well, it's just believe that when there's there's a number of 144,000 beings, when we reach that like Christ consciousness, that it's going to shift the whole planet, and that there's those 144,000 beings that are really here to help move us into that new energy. So
Everybody, real quickly, remember that now. Remember I talked about next year, the odds of a world war, economic crash are very high. That's the way through it. If we can get these 144,000, it's not as many as you think when you talk about all the billions here on the planet. If we can get enough people at the core that are into the new consciousness, we can avoid a lot of what is likely to come next year.
yeah, I mean, the more we can be, the more enlightened we can be, and living from our hearts, from love, which is what you were talking about a little bit too. It's going to help the whole planet shift, but to stay in that vibration. And I think it's going to be, I think actually there's way more than 144,000 people that are working towards that Christ consciousness and living from that place. Absolutely. So, I was going to just talk a little bit today in the time I have about another aspect of astrology, which most of you who have listened to our show know that I have been working with the cycle of Venus for the last like 5 or 6 years. And it's so fascinating. And right now, we are in the throat chakra gateway. A week from today, I wanted to talk to you about, because we're not going to be here next week. We'll be here in 2 more weeks where I can talk more about the next gateway. But I just wanted to bring everyone's awareness to that next Saturday at 6:23 a.m. Pacific time, 9:23 a.m. Eastern time. The waning crescent moon will join Venus, morning star Venus, in Scorpio, and they're going to conjunct each other. And those of you on the West Coast, Pacific time, and Hawaii may actually be able to see the conjunction. But I wanted to talk about it because the days leading up to it, so a few days before, you can actually see the waning crescent moon and Venus getting closer, and it's really powerful. And what's the significance of it? So those of you that have listened already know it's very much connected with the descent and ascent of Inanna. And right now we're in the beginning part of the 19-month cycle of Venus. And there's 5 19-month cycles of Venus that make up this 8-year larger pattern that forms what's called the Rose of Venus. And it's this beautiful sacred geometry, and it has the points of Venus. And so right now, in September, the beginning of September, the end of August. Hey, Judy Ann from Seattle and everybody else is listening. We began the new cycle. Venus went retrograde on Mary Magdalene feast day on July 22nd. The retrograde period started the metamorphosis, Venus shifting into her new goddess energy from Capricorn. The last cycle was oversold by Capricorn, which was the wise woman energy, the wisdom energy. And now when Venus went retrograde in Leo and was in Leo for many months, at least in tropical astrology, she went through that shift. So this Venus cycle is oversold by the Leo goddess energy. So what's the Leo goddess energy? It's very much about, the heart, the energy of the heart, since Leo rules the energy of the heart chakra, the inner child, self-love, creativity, playfulness, creative self-expression. And Leo also has a lot to do with coming into our sovereignty. And there's different goddesses that are very connected to the Leo energy. One of them is Sekhmet, who is a lion-headed goddess, and she is often depicted on a throne, which is that energy of that sovereign, being in your sovereignty. And of course, Inanna. And then how I've been working with the Venus gateways is that each gateway, there's different goddesses that kind of oversoul that gateway. So the Venus entered the morning star in August, and then the first gateway was the crown chakra gateway, and it's connected with the descent of Venus and Inanna to the underworld and then back. So it follows that archetypal pattern of the descent, and it's descending through the chakras. So we went through the crown chakra gateway when the waning crescent moon and Venus joined in September, and then in October, when they joined again, it was the third eye chakra, and then in early November was the throat chakra gateway when they joined together. So Venus has been in Libra, getting ready to shift into Scorpio in tropical astrology, and which is what I usually use. So right now we're in the last week. We have 1 week left of the throat chakra gateway. So I just want to bring this into your awareness. So any issues that are still lingering in your throat chakra, it's the time to cleanse, because on the descents, when the gateways are with the waning crescent moon and Venus, since it's the waning moon, it's really, and it's the descent, it's a time of clearing and releasing the old patterns, the old programs, the old imprints, the old belief systems that are held in each of our chakras. It's a very powerful journey when you start tuning in to this cycle of Venus and doing this work with your chakra gateways. So the throat chakra gateways, what are the ways you've silenced yourself? What are the ways you hold yourself back from speaking your truth and expressing who you really are? A lot of the throat rules, singing, toning, and it's also the throat and the root and sacral are also very connected to each other. In fact, physiologically, the throat is very similar to down into the pelvis, and so there's a connection there too. But so this is a time. What are the ways you have held yourself back in the full expression of who you are, creatively, verbally, all those kinds of ways? So this week, really let yourself go through those last remnants of things that you need to release. You can do ceremonies. You can do burning ceremonies, releasing the old energies, and whatever it is that you can do to let go of what you no longer need, that you're clearing and holding in your throat chakra. Then you'll be ready to move. We're going to be moving into the heart chakra gateway next Saturday. So what are the last remnants? And to help you, there's solfeggio frequencies that you can listen to. You can go online and research, or I think it's the 741 frequency. I'm not remembering totally right now, but there's a frequency for the throat chakra. There's also, blue, turquoise blue, working with that energy. There's essential oils you can anoint your throat chakra with, like lavender and spearmint, and also all the blue essential oils like blue tansy, blue chamomile, blue yarrow, blue cypress. There's a lot of blue, actually physiologically blue essential oils that are good to anoint yourself. Oh, blue lotus, that's another one. Blue lotus is great. And also there's stones like turquoise and aquamarine and blue topaz. And there's so many different blue stones that you can also work with. But more than anything, practice toning, using your voice, singing as much as you can, chanting. All those things open up the throat chakra. And hum, H-A-M, hum is the seed mantra for the throat. And you can use that mantra, over and over again to help open your throat. So you want to do whatever you can to release the old energies held there and to open up your throat. And then we'll be moving into the heart chakra, and you may start feeling that. So we'll be moving into, what's held in our hearts, any relationship issues may start coming to the surface, issues around our self-love and our compassion for ourselves, are issues that might start emerging for you during this week. And remember early in the morning to look out. And my door just opened. I guess the wind blew it open, or maybe our kitty, our new little kitty. So I hear her coming in. Yes, she is. So I wanted to also bring into our awareness, because between now and when we meet next is also the day of 12/12, which Leo mentioned is the new moon. So we have the new moon in the afternoon, and late that night, Mercury goes retrograde like Leo talked about, but it's also the 12/12 portal and Virgin de Guadalupe Day. And I just wanted to bring our awareness to that. So Virgin de Guadalupe is, she's like an aspect or an emanation of the Virgin Blessed Mother. And there's this beautiful story. I'm just going to say briefly, this Aztec man, here's our little kitty, by the way. And she's on my lap now. And there was this man named Don Diego. He was an Aztec man, and he was out in the field, and he saw the Virgin Mary came to him. Virgin de Guadalupe came to him and asked him to build a shrine. And she spoke to him in his Aztec language, and he listened. And he said, well, how am I going to convince all the church people and all the people of the land to allow this shrine to be built in your honor? And she said not to worry, that she would help him. And so one day, and it was in the winter, it was the 9th of December, which was cold, a time when roses don't usually bloom. And when he went to the head chaplain or whatever of the area, he said, well, you're going to have to give me some proof of this. And so the Virgin Mother, Virgin de Guadalupe, she did. She filled his robe, his shawl, with roses, hundreds of roses. And he showed the bishop or whatever, and that they approved of this shrine. And ever since then, this was back in 1531, Virgin de Guadalupe has been, and this day, 12/12, has been honored as her sacred day. And all through Mexico and many different places in the world, we honor the Virgin, the Blessed Mother, the Virgin de Guadalupe. So, and what is she all about? She's about love and compassion and the energies of the rose, the sacred rose, which is the energy of the heart. So she's a reminder for us to come back into our heart chakras. So I know we don't have that much time left.
Very true. We do not. Deb, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. I'll let people know how they can get a hold of me.
Yes. So I wanted to say that for those of you that are interested in the Venus cycle, my kitty's very wiggly right now, our kitty. To get a hold of me, you can go to my website, which is Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. You can also write me at Alelia, which is my spiritual name, Elia, at Gaia Sophia, Temple of the Heart. And for those interested in the Venus cycle, at each of the gateways, I do a ceremony. Yes, thank you, Judy Ann. When the roses fell to the floor on his cape was her picture. Yes, thank you, Judy. So if anyone's interested in joining, I'm doing a ceremony next Saturday morning, the day of the gateway, and each gateway. And you can find that information on my website, GaiaSophiaTempleoftheHeart.com. And I'm so grateful to all of you for being here. And I hope you have a blessed week through the ending of the throat chakra and getting ready for the heart. And sending much love to you all.
Deborah, people can get a hold of me if they'd like at Solus, SOULUS, at AOL.com for whatever their needs are that I can provide them with. So thank you all very much. And thank you, Dennis. Special thank you. And we will be around 2 weeks from today. Take care, everybody. Much love.
Much love to everyone. Have a beautiful couple weeks. Bye now.